The United States and Cuba take the first major step in trying to thaw relations, holding high-level diplomatic talks in Havana. Both sides describing the talks as productive and also positive, but they note that there are still profound differences between the two countries. You know, the Obama administration says the talks are an important step forward, but some Cuban Americans, take a look at this, well, they heatedly disagree, protesting and expressing their anger over all of this on the streets of Miami. Do they have a point? John Huddy is a Cuba expert and a journalist who has covered Cuba and who has also lived there. John, welcome. Good to see you here in the Fox News channel.
Eric, Sean, good to see you again.
Do you think that Go ahead.
I think there is only one blindingly unassailable truth about this whole Cuban situation. And I think you've learned this as a journalist. And that blindingly unassailable truth is there's room for bitterness on both sides of the Florida Straits. And you're going to see that over the next months and years. But I would also point out, relative to those pictures, the video you just saw, that the polls show that a majority of Cubans in Florida support what Obama is doing. You've got the people that are protesting and waving signs and probably throwing a few punches. But I think the Cubans support this in both sides, in Havana, in Cuba, and in America.
Do you think that this is a wise move? Look, we haven't seen democracy there. They still have arbitrary detentions. Political prisoners have only increased. They have people in work camps, and the money seems to flow to the Castro brothers and its regime.
I haven't seen any hard evidence that says that the Castro brothers are enriching themselves and are the typical Haiti, Dominican Republic type of dictators. I don't believe that's true. I think the benefits here far outweigh the negatives. And the truth is, let me put it this way, you've covered business news. If you hire me to take over this problem you have with your company called Cuba, a division called Cuba, and it's a disaster, it's a fiasco, and in 5 years I don't deliver, you're going to fire me. And if it goes another 5 years, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 52 years of failure, the policies that I've imposed, are you going to keep me in the job? No, you're going to fire me. The embargo and the hostility and the subversion and all of this has failed. And around the world, we've been condemned for that. It's, in my opinion, and this is going to inflame a few people in Miami, but I think the majority may agree. In my opinion, this was a daring, humane, and long overdue move. And I support it enthusiastically.
So what do you foresee 5 years from now? Do you see progress in Cuba? Do you see any more democracy? Do you see further release of prisoners?
That's the big question. 5 years from now, I would say, if I was a Vegas guy, I would say 3-1 in favor of the fact that Cuba will have a mixed economy, a very different form of government. It will be engaged in heavy trade and tourism and really a strong relationship with the United States. I think there will be major changes. But this is not guaranteed because, as we've seen yesterday, the two sides sit across from each other. There's a lot of problems. From the Cuban end, they say, you've been conducting 52 years of subversion against us. You tried to kill our people, you know, with these comical assassination attempts. And then we come back and say, yeah, pardon. You know what that means? It means to the wall. You shot a lot of people, and they weren't all thugs, and they weren't all hoodlums and Batistaites. So we're going to go back and forth and back and forth. And what I really think may happen, the media has been covering this story about Obama is going to close Guantanamo. What they may not know is I think Obama, and I have sources that tell me this, is going to close the Guantanamo Bay Navy base, period. But he's going to use that as a bargaining chip. And if it's done well, the Cubans want nothing more than to get that 45 square mile, one of the best harbors in all of the hemisphere. They want that back. And it was taken away in 1903 by the Platt Amendment, which you know basically gave the United States total control over Cuba.
John, we're running out of time, but that's a bombshell. I mean, if that indeed, that's a huge bombshell. Do you think that there is a realistic possibility that this administration would give Guantanamo Bay, that huge swath, that big chunk of their country, back to the Cubans? And what would that mean?
Yes. It would mean that those people who have looked upon us, and by the way, I'm not saying that I believe all of this, but there are people who say we have been a bully, that we've treated this little country that is really no threat to us in a very inhumane way, and that giving back Guantanamo Bay would rehabilitate that image. And we're not just the Colossus from the north. You read that in your history books. We're not just the Yankee imperialists, but we are that shining city upon a hill. that we really believe that we're a special people. There is something called American exceptionalism, and I think doing that would create that image once more.
John Huddy, thank you, with an intriguing potential bombshell here about Guantanamo Bay, and you grew up there. So I thank you so much for joining us today.